Among the many splendid fleets in attendance at Interlaken most years is that belonging to Martin Whittwer. The fleet is diversified and includes general as well as heavy haulage combinations. But logging is the principal activity undertaken by the company, and two smartly turned out Scania T-line tractors equipped with self-loading cranes are among the more interesting vehicles generally in attendance. But once the show is over, it's back to work for everyone. And that includes the boss himself. For Martin Whittwer most definitely believes in a hands-on approach to management. And if that means loading and driving a logging outfit, then he is the man for the job. Switzerland may be blessed with stunning mountain scenery, but that does not make life any easier for log truck drivers. Narrow tracks and steep gradients demand unusually high driving skills, and with a load of logs aboard, road positioning is of the utmost importance. The real skill, however, lies in the fact that drivers descending the tortuous slopes are required to steer not only the tractor unit, but also the trailer bogie. And it is only by using this unique feature that seemingly impossible turns can be negotiated successfully. So it's right hand for the Scania and left for the trailer. Meanwhile, the feet are also doing their thing. Now that's what you call coordination. Surprisingly perhaps, the trailer is steered by means of a short and innocent-looking joystick, located in this instance on the armrest of the driver's door. As with all things, we suspect that it's a case of practice makes perfect. But for beginners, the prospect of twitching the control the wrong way and accidentally wiping out a parked car or someone's living room window must be unnerving, to say the least. Even with a load of short logs on board, successfully negotiating tight turns and frequent bridges over alpine streams is a challenge to be faced routinely. There are rarely opportunities to relax. But eventually the twisting forest tracks give way to slightly wider hard surface roads and remote farm buildings. Few vehicles ever look better than a loaded logger, and when set against a Swiss backdrop, the result is truly amazing. On any descent, there are always a few 90-degree corners that have to be overcome, and the direction is always downwards. So on the never-ending descents, the Scania retarder is worth its weight in gold. Having sympathetic and understanding road users is another major bonus in Switzerland, where residents have long since come to terms with the fact that logging trucks share their roads and pass through their villages. Even bus drivers give way politely as the heavily laden outfits continue their downward journey. But to paraphrase a little, what comes down must inevitably go up again, so lots of retardation is not the only prerequisite of a Swiss logging truck. Big power is necessary too, and that's where the mighty V8 Scania really comes into its own. But exceptional driving skills are not the only talent required by Swiss log truck drivers. Loading and unloading your own rig is all part of the game too, and even with short logs, a high degree of precision is called for. Once empty, even the boss has to complete a bit of housekeeping prior to loading the trailer aboard the Scania for the second time. Each individual log is scaled and graded, and only then can the requisite paperwork be completed and the delivery notes signed off. As with all businesses, it's important to ensure that the paperwork is completed correctly, and of course the boss has to set a good example to the rest of his employees. At this point, the big bonnet is pointed in the direction of the next load. The ability to carry the trailer on the tractor unit means that it is easy enough to reach the loading area, however tight and restricted. Unloading the trailer is carried out using the crane, but it is sometimes impossible to place it far enough behind the Scania if long logs are to be loaded aboard. So once again, a combination of skill and experience is called for. The technique here is to grab a log of suitable length and to use this to push the trailer back into the desired position. This can only be achieved once the electric parking brake on the trailer has been released, and of course once it is in position, the brake is reapplied. Again, this demonstrates the considerable skill of the operator and the sophistication of the equipment employed. Remarkably, the Scania T-line driven by Martin Whittwer shows no evidence whatsoever of the tough conditions it encounters every day. Not one scratch or dent is visible, and even the mirror heads remain unmarked. This demonstrates a quite outstanding achievement on the part of the driver, because every aspect of the operation positively brims over with potential hazards. As mentioned earlier, avoiding contact with other traffic and manoeuvring the Scania and trailer through impossibly tight spots is in itself an outstanding achievement. but even greater hazards present themselves when loading or unloading the trailer. One wrong move with the crane controls, one drop log or clumsily executed manoeuvre, and the cab could be irreversibly damaged. Maintaining an accident-free record under these circumstances is little short of a miracle, and evidence of these hazards is never far away. Once the load is aboard, the crane stowed, the legs retracted, and a strap placed around the logs, it's time to head for the mill. Once on the move, even the straightforward tracks demand maximum concentration and perfect road positioning. But the tiny hamlets along the route present some real obstacles, and at these times it's necessary to watch not only the front of the tractor and crane and the rear bogie, but also the lethal tail swing. There is no doubting the astonishing precision of drivers like Martin Whittwer, but one can't help thinking that residents must be just a little apprehensive whenever a fully freighted logger passes by. Clearances are marginal at best. It's important that the superb vista of lakes and mountains does not distract the log truck drivers. Even 1 second lack of concentration could result in damage either to the truck or to someone else's property. Inevitably, it's not just the countryside and picturesque hamlets that have to be travelled. Larger towns too have to be crossed from time to time, and even with what expert Martin Whittwer considers logs of medium length, negotiating tight roundabouts represents a monumental hurdle. And as we've mentioned before, even when there appears to be plenty of room, it's important to remember the tail swing. At first glance, some yards look impossible to get into, but by utilising the steering mechanism on the trailer and watching for the tail swing, Martin Whittwer manages to squeeze into even the most inaccessible spots. And once in place, the unloading area itself is equally cramped and restricted, so once again there's no room for error or even the slightest misjudgment. But the relaxed and almost casual use of the crane controls only serves to highlight the expertise of the man in the hot seat. And in no time at all, the load is removed without incident from the trailer and added to the growing stockpile. The trailer is then carefully lifted aboard the tractor unit, this manoeuvre too presenting a great opportunity for damage. And once more the crane is stowed on the cab roof and the legs retracted. Only then can the motor be switched off and the truck directed towards yet another load. And fortunately, it's a lot easier to back out onto the main road than it was to squeeze into the site. Heading deep into the forests can be a bit of an adventure, provided of course that you know the way out. But some loading areas look fraught with danger even at a quick glance. And one in which there are 25-metre long logs to be loaded, and the entire site is hemmed in by standing timber, most definitely presents a major challenge. Here again, the technique of pushing the trailer bogie to the optimum position by using a log of the right length is employed, and once in position, the longest logs are used to form the base of the load. Judging the best spot to place the grapple, just to get logs of this length aboard, is in itself a tough assignment. But sometimes it's necessary to turn the complete log through 180 degrees in order to get the weight distribution correct. This is tricky enough where there is lots of space, but with standing timber on both sides of the truck, the only option is to thread the butt carefully between the rooted trees. Having once again loaded the Scania and trailer to its full capacity, Martin Whittwer enjoys a few brief seconds of near silence before heading off along what can only be described as a track better suited to a quad bike than a fully freighted logging combination, especially one measuring almost 100 feet long from stem to stern. No one could imagine that a loaded truck could possibly negotiate this forest track successfully, and even locals accustomed to seeing logging trucks emerging from the woods would have been surprised to witness this particular event. But eventually the track becomes a road. It's not a wide road, but at worst it measured twice the width of the forest track, and it was hard surfaced. Was that a little whoop of joy we heard from Martin Whittwer? For a few brief minutes it's all plain sailing, with not an obstacle in sight. But before long, yet another hazard hoves into view, and great care is necessary in order not to clip the power pole by misjudging the blind side tail swing. After the forest track, a 90-degree right at a tight junction is simplicity itself. Surely there can't be many other hazards to watch for on this trip. But what are we saying? Watch those window boxes. Some manoeuvres are easier than others, and at times it pays just to overlook the legal implications and use the left side of the road rather than the right. With logs of 25 metres aboard, even getting into the mill is a tight squeeze, but a combination of driving skill and steering rear bogie eventually makes it possible. Once in position, the unloading process can begin, and a new technique is employed to ensure that the extra long logs are positioned exactly in the right place. Here a log is placed so that it forms a temporary bridge over which to slide and guide the logs being unloaded. This reduces the need to balance each log exactly at its pivot point and thereby speeds up the unloading process. One thing for certain is that logging is a tough business wherever it is carried out, and each type of load and terrain poses its own particular hazards. But we have to say that for sheer ingenuity and expertise, few operations can match the Swiss logging experience. And among the very best of the very best we have ever seen is Martin Whittwer, truly a king of the woods.
Ski